Earlier today, the official selection of films for the 78th Gun Film Festival were announced. 50 films in total so far. Last year we got 69, very nice. So we can expect a bunch of additions to be made over the next couple of weeks, and I will add those to a pinned comment. But without further ado, let's have a look at this year's Gun Film Festival selection. Is it a good one? Well, let's talk about it. You'll also find the respective sections in chapters below. I will be going over every movie that was announced today briefly, and I'll give you some recommendations about what you could watch instead of going to the festival, or maybe if you are going in preparation for it. I will be covering the festival myself for the 4th time. That's why I got this lovely hat, and you can follow me on my socials as well as the ones for Quiet on Set for all of that coverage. And if there's any publishers watching, my email is also linked below. I always love to get as many screeners as I can so I can squeeze in as many movies as I possibly can, because as you know, sleep is only a secondary priority when you're attending a film festival. But also one last thing before we get into it, there's a bunch of films that we were expecting to get from this announcement that we didn't, so let's go over them. First up, Chloe Zhao's Hamnet is not going to Gun, at least so far. Also, Kogonada's A Big Bold Beautiful Journey that got moved from its May to I think October release date did not get announced. The same goes for Greg Araki's I Want Your Sex, as well as Park Chan-wook's No Other Choice. Big bummer for me on that one. Spike Lee's remake of Akira Kurosawa's High and Low, Highest to Lowest, seemingly is also not heading to the Croisette, as well as Lynn Ramsey's Die My Love. I already pre-ordered the book and I've been reading it, so hopefully that still gets announced in the coming days. The new film from Jim Jarmusch, Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, as well as Terrence Malick's The Way of the Wind. All were left out of today's announcement. But let's start it off with the competition. 19 films so far were announced today. Usually we get around 22 in the section, so we can expect roughly 3 more that should be added later on. First up, Sentimental Value, Joachim Trier's first film since 2021. The Worst Person in the World, which was my favorite film of that year. It stars Renate Reinsve again, as well as Stellan Skarsgård and Elle Fanning. The film is about an actress and her sister who mourn their mother as their father comes back into their lives. I'd recommend you watch The Worst Person in the World if you haven't already, but also August 31st as well as Reprise are 2 great other films from Trier that are definitely worth watching. Kali Reichardt's The Mastermind with Josh O'Connor, Alana Haim, and John Magaro tells the story of an art heist against the backdrop of the Vietnam War and the women's liberation movement. Reichardt's films do have a slower pace to themselves, so if you're maybe not used to it, I'd recommend you start with something like First Cow, which also stars Magaro as preparation. The Palme d'Or winner of 2021, Julia Ducournau, returns after Titan with Alpha, a film set in the late 80s about a teenager that gets rejected by her classmates because of a rumor spreading that she's been infected with a new disease. The film is led by Emma Mackey and also stars Taha Rahim. And instead of Titan, I'd say go watch Raw. That's also about a teenage girl and might be a better pairing. Then Ari Aster's Eddington is heading to the Croisette. Sparks fly when Sheriff Joe Cross decides to run for mayor of Eddington after he refuses to wear a face mask at the local grocery store. It stars Joaquin Phoenix, Pedro Pascal, Austin Butler, and Emma Stone. And I don't think Aster has made anything that pairs up with this well, but Beau is Afraid marks the first collaboration between him and Phoenix, so I'd go with that one. The film I'm personally the most excited for is Nouvelle Vague by Richard Linklater, about the making of Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless. A bout de souffle, someone who actually speaks French will butcher me for that, but that's obviously the pairing here. A movie that I personally have to catch up with as well. It also stars Zoe Deutsch, who plays Jean Seberg. Wes Anderson is also back to Gun after Asteroid City and The French Dispatch both premiered there. Venice snatched up his Netflix shorts, but for this one I will spare you with the cast. It's crazy as always, and it's about a dark tale of espionage following a strained father-daughter relationship within a family business and strained relationships. Plus, honoring Gene Hackman, I'll definitely go with the Royal Tenenbaums as an easy choice as the pairing here. The History of Sound stars 2 heartthrobs at the moment, Paul Mescal and Josh O'Connor. Actually ran into Josh when he was at the festival for La Chimera. Anyways, this is set during World War I and sees 2 young men record the lives, voice, and music of their American countrymen. I can't say I've loved Olivier Hermanus's filmography so far, but Moffy is set in South Africa in 1981 about military service, so it might be the best fit to get you ready for the history of sound. Bacurau and Pictures of Ghosts director Kleber Mendonça Filho has a film called The Secret Agent set in 1977's Brazil in the lineup. It's led by Wagner Moura and also stars Udo Kier. It's about the time under the military dictatorship, and I think I'm Still Here is kind of a perfect pairing, even though it's not by the same director but Walter Salles, but thematically it definitely stays in the same lane. A few years ago I caught Cairo Conspiracy by Tarek Saleh in Cannes, and I quite liked it. He's back with Eagles of the Republic, about Egypt's fictional most adored actor that falls into disgrace overnight and is forced to accept an offer he can't refuse. I'm keen. Jafar Panahi is back with In Simple Accident. I haven't warmed up to his filmmaking style yet, which is also quite meta and fourth wall breaking and always involves him as like the filmmaker as a character. It's not for me so far, but if you were to indulge, I'd recommend something like No Bears as a pairing, but we don't know anything about the plot about this one yet, so we'll have to wait and see. Plan 75 was an excellent film that played at 2022 at the festival about a society that offers euthanasia at the age of 75. Filmmaker Chi Hawakawa is back with a film called Renoir, set in suburban Tokyo in 1987, about a father who is battling cancer and his 11-year-old boy. Sounds like an intriguing family drama I'm excited to see, and I definitely say Plan 75 is worth checking out. The Dardenne brothers are back with a film called Young Mothers, about women housed in a shelter who are trying to make a better life for themselves and their children. I've seen two other films of theirs and I can recommend them both. One of them is a bit older, called Rosetta from 1991, I believe, and the other one was screened in Cannes in 2022 and is called Tori and Lokita. Ukrainian filmmaker Sergei Lotznista has a film called Two Prosecutors that is set in 1937 and focuses on a young prosecutor that sets out to challenge Stalin's Great Terror after discovering a letter from a prisoner asking for help. Apart from a documentary of his that I despised quite a bit, I'm not familiar with the director, but State Funeral or In the Fog seem like an appropriate pairing for this one. Mario Maddon, an Italian filmmaker, is back after 2022's nostalgia with Fuori, which is about a writer who ends up in prison where she makes a friend and forms a bond no one else is able to understand. These Italian synopses are sometimes a bit odd, so I don't know what to expect, but we'll see. Like the last few years, I will try to see everything in competition. I succeeded for the first time last year, got really close the year before. There's always filmmakers that I'm not familiar with, so here's the final few in competition where it's hard for me to recommend anything because I haven't seen any other film of theirs. The Youngest Daughter is by Hafsia Herzi, who I found captivating in The Rapture, where she was acting in the film. The story focuses on Fatima, who is the youngest daughter in a family of Algerian migrants in France. She discovers her love for women, which brings her into conflict with her family, her faith, and her own identity. Next up, we got Dossier 137 by Dominic Moll. I've heard good things about The Night of the 12th, so I'll pair it up with that. This one is a story about an investigator at the IGPN, the police of the police. That sounds intriguing. A German film called Sound of Falling, aka In die Sonne schauen by Mascha Schilinsky, about four girls in four different decades that share growing up on a rural farm and seem to be connected in some way, is heading to Cannes as well. I'm curious about how this is presented, and I really don't have anything to pair up with it other than a book I've recently heard about called The Hours by Michael Cunningham that seems similar, at least in the way that it uses its characters that share something over like a couple of decades, that type of plot. Got nothing else on that, but I'm intrigued. Romeria by Carla Simon is about a 18-year-old orphan girl who has to travel to Spain's Atlantic coast to get a signature for her scholarship application from her grandparents that she's never met. A road trip orphan movie, yes, I'm in. I've yet to see Alcaraz, but that'd be my prep recommendation. Finally, Oliver Lacks has a film called Sirat about a father and son looking for his missing daughter in North Africa. And I'm sure the one or the other film will be added here. I'm still holding out hope that somehow Die My Love or No Other Choice makes it in here. But let's get to the films from out of competition. First up, this was already announced a couple of days ago. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. We'll see Tom Cruise return to Cannes after premiering Top Gun Maverick there. These screenings can be tough to get into, but the film literally premieres while the festival is still on. So obviously the rest of the franchise franchise is what I'd recommend you go see before going into it. I'd also recommend you go see it on the biggest screen available, preferably in IMAX. Then we got The Richest Woman in the World, which has a really intriguing logline. A nonagenarian's gift of millions to a young artist sparks a scandal, leading her daughter to uncover alleged political corruption involving a former president. It's tagged as a comedy drama, so it could be a swing and a miss, but it stars Isabelle Huppert, which, yeah, she's always pleasant. I'll watch All That Divides Us in preparation for this. Vie privée, which means private life, comes from Rebecca Slotowski, who actually got to interview for her last film, Other People's Children, which that was excellent. It also starred Virgin Efira as well as Jodie Foster, and the film is about a psychiatrist who mounts her own investigation into the death of one of her patients whom she is convinced has been murdered. That sounds so compelling. I'm so ready for that one. And the final out of competition film for now is Colors of Time, or The Coming of the Future, or La Venue de l'Avenir. Get back to me when you've settled on a title, I guess. This one's from Cedric Klapisch, who I don't know. The film is told in two timelines set in 1985 and 2025, and it's about inheritance money and uncovering the ancestors' past. I don't know, it's a bit of a messy synopsis for now. That seems to be the vibe for this one though. So I'll go with the most popular film of his as a pairing, which is called The Spanish Apartment. I'll have to check this one out myself. We have made our way to the gun premiere section, which is also out of competition in a way, and it's got some interesting titles in here. First up, we got Amrum from Fatih Akin, which sees him work with Diane Kruger again. Set in early 1945, the island Amrum is known for hunting seals and night fishing. There's a 10-year-old boy that grows up after the war is ending, and challenges arise for him to find his own path in life. I can fully recommend In the Fade, but I'll personally be watching The Edge of Heaven as preparation for Amrum. Then we got Splitsville from Michelangelo Convino, starring Dakota Johnson, Adria Arjano, and Nicholas Brown in his next film after the amazing The Climb. It seems to be another relationship dramedy. I'm here for that. Also, anyone who knows me just a tiny bit should be aware that I love Adria, so I'm very keen for this one. Then we got Kirill Sebrenikov's next film after Tchaikovsky's Wife and Limonov, that both screened in Cannes, first in Un Certain Regard and then in a competition, and now I guess he's heading to the Cannes premiere. I can't say that I've been a fan of either of them. I think they've kind of been a bit over stylized. This one is called Disappearance, actually has a longer title as well, and it is about a Nazi doctor who disappeared to South America at the end of World War II and was never captured. I hope this is not as over stylized or kind of dragging or just not really fully coming together as much as his last two films. I'll give it another try with Petrov's Flu, and I'd recommend that film as well, not knowing, I guess, if it's any good or if I like it, but I'll be watching that in preparation. And then we got Raoul Peck, who is a great documentary filmmaker. He is premiering his film about the famous 1984 and Animal Farm author George Orwell, and it's called Orwell 2 + 2 = 5. I don't know if that title is going to stick. I Am Not Sure is a film that I think everyone should have seen, and I actually watched it last year for Ernest Cole Lost and Found, which didn't think that movie was as great as I Am Not Sure, but definitely go check that one out if you haven't already, and I'm quite keen for Orwell 2 + 2 = 5. The Wave is a film set in Chile by Sebastian Lilo about a student who becomes part of the growing feminist movement and unexpectedly becomes a central figure in it. I like The Wonder with Florence Pugh quite a bit, but I'll be checking out Disobedience. A film called Connemara by Alex Loof plays in this section as well. We don't know pretty much anything about this film yet, and that is the Cannes premiere section for now. Then we got the special screenings, which is probably getting the most amount of additions. At least that was what Thierry said when he announced the whole lineup. But for now, we only have 3 films announced in this category so far. First, a film about Bono, Stories of Surrender, a music documentary from Blonde, and the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, directed Andrew Dominic. People praise That Much I Know to Be True a lot, which is also a music doc about musician Nick Cave. So I think that is probably the best pairing for this. And then we got the triplets of Belleville director Sylvain Jomet, who has an animated film called The Magnificent Life of Marcel Pagnol, set in Marseille following the life of artists in the 1930s to 50s. I have yet to see Belleville, and I recommend you do the same. It's always nice to see animated films make it into these major festival lineups, so I'll definitely be checking this one out. And then finally, Dites-lui que je l'aime. Someone in France just died with me saying that, which translates to tell him I love him, from Roman Boringer, rounds out the special screening section for now. Roman is mainly an actress, and we don't know anything about the plot yet, so we'll have to wait and see if I manage to see this one. And then next up, the midnight section can either be a dread or a blast, depending on the movie you get. They've announced 3 films so far, and I would not be surprised if it doesn't go much beyond that, because these midnight screenings, there's only so many that you can do, and otherwise it gets a bit too late, and it's usually on the weekends that they do them, so I think we'll stick with these 3. The first film we got here is Exit 8 by Genji Kawamura, and is about a man trapped in an endless, sterile subway passageway trying to get to Exit 8. It sounds like a twisted spin on a time loop-ish plot. It sounds pretty trippy. I'm all here for it. And then Dalloway by Jan Goslan remains a mystery for now, because sometimes these midnight screenings are the most fun if you don't know anything about them. We'll have to see if this one turns out to be fun. And then finally, Sons of the Neon Night definitely has the sickest title so far, and it maybe is looking like a noir detective story set in Hong Kong about a cop going up against the successor of a drug trafficking crime syndicate. I expect a ton of action, and I'll watch Rigor Mortis by the same director as preparation. And then truly finally now we got the final section here, which is called Un certain regard. We got 14 films that were announced today. The section is meant to spotlight emerging filmmakers and is often a place for first films, so 8 out of the 14 films in here are actually debut features, including films from some well-known actors making their feature debut, like Scarlett Johansson with Eleanor the Great, giving the delightful June Squibb another lead role. If you haven't already, definitely go check out Thelma. This film is about a 90-year-old woman trying to rebuild her life after the death of her best friend. She moves back to New York City after living in Florida for decades. I'll be first in line for this one. Then Harris Dickinson makes his debut with Urchin. It's set in London and about a young man who has trouble sleeping and is trapped in a self-destructive cycle, and sees him try to turn his life around. Stays pretty vague, but I'll definitely be checking this one out. Then I think we'll stick with the first films before we go to some films where I can maybe actually recommend another pairing. The Mysterious Gaze of the Flamingo is set in 1984 and tells the story of a 12-year-old girl living in a mining village where an unknown illness has already claimed lives of several men. Rumor has it it's transmitted when they fall in love with each other by looking into each other's eyes. Okay, My Father's Shadow is the feature debut of Akinola Davis, about 2 kid brothers spending a day with their estranged father and head into Lagos with the backdrop of the 1993 presidential election in Nigeria. Caravan from Zuzana Kirchnerova is about a single mother and her mentally disabled son. She wants to spend 2 weeks away from him in Italy, but when plans change, he has to come along. Pillon by Harry Linton stars Henry Melling and Alexander Skarsgård, and is about a guy who lets life pass him by. When a handsome leader of a motorcycle club takes him in and introduces him to a community of kinky queer bikers, they start taking all sorts of virginities from him. Aisha Can't Fly Anymore is about a 26-year-old Somali woman who lives in an African migrant community in Cairo. Violent tensions between Egyptians and the migrants have allowed gangs to seize control over the neighborhood, and Aisha is offered security for a favor. This one looks quite intriguing to me. Then J.L. Edgerton stars in The Plague by Charlie Pollinger. It's about a socially awkward tween who endures the ruthless hierarchy at a water polo camp. The final 6 films in Un certain regard aren't first films, so yeah, I might even got something for you that you can watch before you get there, or instead of heading to Cannes, because we never know with a lot of these titles when they come out, if they ever come out. But Meteors from Hubert Jaruel is about the reunion of three childhood friends. There's not much more known about the plot so far. Petit Paysan, also known as Bloody Milk, is another film of his that's might be worth checking out. I'll try and get around to it. Then we got The Great Arch from Stefan Demoustier, and this one's about an architecture teacher from Copenhagen that won an open call competition launched by French President François Mitterrand, and the lead is played by Claes Bang. Apparently this is based on like some actual story, so there you go. Then we got Homebound, an Indian film by Nesraj Gajwan with a plot that also is yet to be disclosed. We got A Pale View of Hills, a Japanese film from Kai Ishikawa that explores dual timelines in a widow's memories spanning post-war Nagasaki in the 1950s and England during the 1980 Cold War era. I like the director's previous film, A Man, which has yet to officially get a digital release anywhere. I got to see it in Venice, so maybe Traces of Sin is an alternative for you to check out before. Then we got Once Upon a Time in Gaza from Arab and Tarzan Nassar. This one is set in 2007, where a young student forges a friendship with a charismatic drug dealer that has a big heart. They peddle drugs out of a falafel restaurant and are then confronted with a corrupt cop and his oversized ego. I'm intrigued for this one. And then finally, Heads or Tails, an Italian movie about a cowboy and his sweetheart who run away together when he's accused of murdering her husband and then becomes a symbol of local uprising. I know that one of my colleagues, Kevin, will definitely want me to check out an Italian Western. I'll be there. But that's everything from Cannes for now. Outside of the official selection parallel to the festival, the Directors Fortnight and Critics Week will be going on, and those will respectively add another 20-ish films to the lineup. There's also something called Acid, which will add another 10 films. Usually those are not really worth checking out, but something like Aftersun came out of the Critics Week or the Directors Fortnight, so it's always worth keeping those on your radar as well. I'll make sure to link the Letterboxd list, which I will keep updated as well. The Gun Film Festival also has their own HQ account now on Letterboxd, so you can go to their list directly. But if you're already down there on Letterboxd, make sure to drop me a follow. The same goes for the Quiet on Set HQ, so you make sure to not miss any of coverage from the festival next month. It's crazy. And a month from now, I'll be in Cannes. I'll be talking about all of those movies to you. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as well as mine. We'll be publishing reviews during and after the festival. And also let me know which movie from the selection you are most excited about and which one you hope still gets added to the festival. I'm personally most excited for Richard Linklater's Nouvelle Vague. I also am very much looking forward to Sentimental Value, Eddington, Renoir, and Ducarno's Alpha. But until then, I will see you in Cannes. Thanks for watching.